Duco Show. We're going to work through the news hour, news and politics, just so much information about the hysteria over Donald Trump's executive orders on immigration and refugee temporary bans. So in a nutshell, let me kind of recap what I said, and then I'll go into some other things about this. In a nutshell, he lowered Obama's $100,000 refugee back down to $50,000, the level that had been average for the last 15 years since 9/11. He merely went back to what Obama himself, close to what he was averaging before 2016. 7 countries, no immigration for 90 days from those 7 countries, no refugees for 120 days while we improve on the vetting process. And the 7 countries were actually selected by Barack Obama as the 7 most ISIS-infiltrated countries to be careful for, to watch. Has nothing to do with the countries that produced the hijackers from 9/11. That's not what this is about, just like Barack Obama's wasn't about that. The 7-country ban does allow, by the way, for exceptions, for individuals that have already been vetted or approved, or that we know don't have to worry about, like government officials, interpreters, people like that. So the executive orders say on a case-by-case basis we'll make exceptions for people. So it's not an all-the-way across-the-board ban. There is no temporary halt on immigration from the rest of the 50-some nations that are Muslim-majority nations around the world. Only these 7. With the exception of Syria, which is the number 1 hotspot, that's ISIS Central. That's open-ended until the vetting is approved. Until 2016, Obama himself had banned refugees from Syria in almost all cases. Did you know that? Until 2016, President Obama himself had banned refugees from Syria in almost all cases, turning away way more refugees than he accepted. And Democrats were fine with that. No claims of Statue of Liberty tears. But then in 2016, President Obama suddenly decided to open the floodgates in his last year and let thousands and thousands of Syrian refugees in. And then accused Republicans of being cruel and evil for daring to say, whoa, not so fast. But here's what I want you folks to remember, okay? Barack Obama, when you look at his refugee programs, here's what he did from Syria. Okay, the Syrian civil war started in 2011. That's when it became really dangerous as far as ISIS and terrorists infiltrating the refugee ranks. And of the hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees who were wanting to come into the United States, Barack Obama in 2011 only allowed 29. That's right, they're on a case-by-case, so with very rare exceptions, they were banned from coming into the United States. Only allowed 29 in the whole year of 2011 from Syria. In 2012, he only allowed 31. In 2013, 36. In 2014, 105. In 2015, he ramped it up to 1,682. But what that means, folks, is that the overwhelming majority of the hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees who were wanting to come to the United States, Barack Obama said no to almost all of them. Until suddenly 2016 comes along and he allows over 15,000 Syrian refugees to flood into the United States when we don't have the proper vetting. So for all the people who say that Donald Trump is so evil and wrong for stopping Syrian refugees right now, with the exception of isolated case-by-case moments, all the ugly things they're saying about Donald Trump, would they say those very ugly things about Barack Obama prior to 2016? Come on, you don't think that's a fair question to ask? You don't think maybe the mainstream media ought to be asking questions like this? But they're not. They're not. And that's what's so dishonest about this. Now, there's some other things on this as well that I think need to be addressed, and I'm going to go through some more of those. A couple of op-eds that really lay this out well, but I want to make sure and stress to you folks, okay? All of the chaos that we saw at the airports, I said this at the top of the hour, and I'm going to repeat it. All the chaos at the airports was not a result of Donald Trump's executive orders. Because when Barack Obama did these executive orders. It didn't result in chaos at the airports. You didn't have people borderline rioting and clogging up and protesting and everything else at airports all across the country in 2011. You didn't have that happen, did you? You know why? Because the press wasn't out there reporting that Barack Obama has instituted a Muslim ban. You didn't hear that. You didn't hear Republicans going out there saying Barack Obama's turning the Statue of Liberty on her head. We're no longer a nation of immigrants, according to Barack Obama. The Statue of Liberty's crying. You didn't hear any of that stuff. You didn't see Republicans going before the camera like Chuck Schumer and choking back tears. This isn't who we are as Americans. You didn't see any of that kind of stuff, did you? So consequently, you didn't have chaos at the airports. Donald Trump does it, and now suddenly you've got all this chaos, but it's because the press blew this up into something that's supposedly unprecedented. You didn't have chaos at airports during the Jimmy Carter years, and you didn't have chaos at airports for the first 6 years of Barack Obama's presidency, when he would only allow a handful, a few dozen isolated cases of refugees from Syria coming to the United States. He banned Syrian refugees with the exception of just a few dozen isolated cases. But for the other hundreds of thousands, banned them, told them no. You didn't see the demonization of Barack Obama for that, did you? And then suddenly his final year in office, well, let's open the floodgates now. Let's bring in as many as we can, over 15,000. Donald Trump gets into office. No, I don't think so. We're going to go back to banning them, just like Barack Obama did, with the exception of maybe a few dozen isolated cases on a case-by-case basis. And now he's the worst person in the world, this side of Hitler, and doesn't even care about the humanitarian crisis. You're listening to The Bob Dutko Show.